Then why? Open up your legs and show us in a negative light. Stand up and let your light so shine. You're beautiful. Their message should be a message that is beautiful.
Music like what we just heard from Lil' Kim is hurting the morality of our nation. Do you think it goes that far, really?
We have a whole generation of children that are being wiped out from an AIDS epidemic. Why can't you sing
music? You just can't blame.
No, I'm not.
At least during certain times of the day, lyrics like are in Lil' Kim's hardcore album. In my opinion, it would be against the law to air them.
There are people who can tell you her songs and don't know their multiplication tables.
And articles about what you like to do orally and what you like to receive and all that. I mean, stuff like that's your personal business. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you want to air that out there.
Just because there's a demand, that does not make it right.
And I think sex does sell, but it may not sell forever. You're going to grow up.
We're going to say goodbye, everybody.
So, about that little clip from the 90s, I do believe that was early 90s. Well, with Lil' Kim is late 90s, I think. Anyhow, what are you guys' thoughts on that? Because in my opinion, you know, that's when it all started. Like the pop culture thing started. That's just my opinion. I know there was Uncle Luke, but Uncle Luke was not like mainstream. He was popping at parties, maybe on the radio after a certain time, or a jukebox where you had to pay to, you know, to see. So I think Lil' Kim was probably one of the first to bring that type of music to pop stream.
Did you see Naughty by Nature OPP video?
I did, but I never. So I did see OPP, but the thing about OPP is I don't think that it, even though it was very the lyrics and what it was talking about was very degrading. Absolutely, so we can definitely bring them into the situation. It was the first time I ever seen a woman mainstream, her and Adina Howard, mainstream being so sexual, you know, and pop. Again, you would hear it, you know, a little late at night, but pop when it was played during the day, you know, a lot of those types of things. So what are you guys' thoughts on that? Because all of y'all are not, you were born and you were in the 90s. I mean, y'all are younger than me, but y'all were.
Yeah, no, I was
Lil' Kim.
Yeah. We had fun during the 90s. That was the time of the basement parties and the if you were in Chicago, had the juke parties in the basement and the grinding. That was the grinding on the wall. I guess they don't do that no more. Y'all missing out. That shit was fun. I mean, you shouldn't do that. You're right.
They ain't grinding on the wall. They grind on each other.
Well, yeah. So you would just lean against the wall.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. You didn't go to none of them parties. All right, got you.
I didn't know that wasn't what I was you know, envisioning.
Oh, all right.
Okay. So what are you guys' thoughts on that? Do you guys agree that is during that time in how we have evolved into the music that we have today? Like that was a starting point, and now that we are to the point that we are today, do you guys? And I know we've kind of hit on this before, but do you guys think that that's a lot of what has like what we're seeing today, so to speak? Or what are your thoughts on the video?
So anybody else want to say it first? Oh, okay, so I think that today is a progression of everything that happened then. Like, because I kind of struggle with this because like we live in a time where like prostitution is illegal and all of those things, right? But there was a time where people could outwardly sell sex and that they can like literally sell sex on the corner and do all of these things. So I think that they didn't mass market it in the same way, but they also didn't have the ability to construct media in the same way that we can and then target it to the masses. So what newspaper couldn't do, TV could, and what TV couldn't do, social media can currently do, right? So is it so much that the standard of sexuality or hypersexuality or graphic image depiction has changed, or is the ability to mass market it and make it more normalized changed? And then you mix that in with the algorithm and how people gravitate towards sex, violence, or any extreme case thing that can kind of shape reality on the fringes. But that's just my thoughts on it.
I think along the lines of what you were saying, Shan, in regards to the reason was, I guess, a big deal, and pulling into some of what Marcus said is how Lil Kim was marketed, because I would say that she would be the first, like, you had some other musicians who was singing stuff that was raunchy, but because she was a female that was singing about, sex and things like that, that was kind of a big thing, and so I think she was the figure that opened the gates for the next generation of women that began to sing about, sex and stuff like that. But I would say, like, how with each generation it got like raunchier and raunchier. So once you open those, like, the floodgates, just a lot more begin, to come out. And I don't think that I think she represented also what has always been going on, just in general, in terms of women being sexualized anyway. She just did it in music and got, paper for it, versus, like, media was used, like, for women being sexualized, like to sell cars, to sell beer, things like that. So I don't think it's anything new in terms of doing that, but I think the difference here is how she, was marketed and how it was marketed in music.
So I've been thinking about it, and I don't really agree with that. I think, like, when we look at like blues and jazz and you go back to those lyrics, they were equally as vulgar as Lil Kim, right? Even their costumes and the way where they would perform. I think what really made the difference with the Lil Kim era is that's when children started to be put in front of a TV and parents started to become less involved. And I think that was that shift where now they're expecting society to raise their children instead of taking a more active role because of the way that work was set up. I don't know that it's really changed all that much, more so that children aren't shielded from it the way that they used to be.
You stole my talking point because we've had a little bit of time to sit here and think about it, Shan. So I think two things. One, the reason why Lil Kim caught so much flack is that was more of the hardening of women, because Adina Howard's lyrics were just as abrasive as Lil Kim's, but she wasn't the hardened woman. She was the t-shirt and your panties on chick. Now, to Naz's point, it was an era where parents weren't really in the home necessarily, because they, you got either one parent or both parents had to work. So there was really no one there to monitor what we consumed. So, and I'll fast forward to something more anecdotal. So the song WAP with what's the chick's name?
Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion.
Yes. The first time I heard that song, I was going to actually take an opportunity to have a conversation with my daughter about the song and about what it meant, and kind of use it as an icebreaker into some deeper conversations. And as soon as she heard what I was about to do, she said, "Oh, Cardi B does not feed my soul. We don't listen to that." So I think that we have to be more active parents now than even back then, because of how at your fingertips they have the media these days.
All right, so let me so you spot on, AP. When I love the part where you said that Little Kim does represent the hardening of women. Even the stuff that women used to sing back in the day, the reason why people could tolerate it, in my opinion, is that it still had a softness and a femininity to it. And it was still about pleasing men or doing stuff to please men. that whole Little Kim era and the hardening that you talked about kind of represented women, a man pleasing a woman. It's almost like a dynamic switch. And Inaz, I gotta call Cap because the lyrics were not as raunchy. Okay, when I think Little Kim, get your feelings in it, get me open while I'm coming down your throat, and I don't think the 1950s kind of had like. I could be wrong. I'm not a strong reviewer of music history past, let's say, Michael Jackson's era, but no, Lil Kim kind of went. She kind of went hard, man. That's all I got to say.
I think it also goes back to what AP was saying too about access. So even let's say it was the same exact lyrics back in the 30s or the 50s. The difference was it was housed in a jazz club where children did not have access to it. So it was more adults. It was adult entertainment, where I think with Little Kim, it was more mainstream, where not just adults had access to it. Children had access to it as well. Young teens had access to it as well. So I think that's probably the caveat, even if it, back in the day, because I've heard some older songs that I was like, oh God, they were like, we'll get on this generation about how raunchy their songs was, but I remember seeing something that was like on like Instagram, how they were going back and forth, like, the son was like, oh, y'all was saying how bad our songs are, and then they just started playing some of our songs. I was like, oh damn, yeah, our songs were kind of raunchy as well. And listening to the previous generation, they did some of their lyrics was raunchy as well. But again, I think it's all about access. Whereas there was there was a line drawn in terms of who was able to access that kind of music, versus now it doesn't matter how old you are. You whatever age range you are, you have access. Like even seeing on Instagram, you can see little kids singing. I remember seeing one, we were just talking about that song. What is it? I don't know what it's called, but it's talking about Booty Hole Brown.
Yeah,
like a little
Oh
kid,
my
it was
God.
like 3 years old singing it. So I think that's the difference.
So look, I
Well,
got a song for. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, and I would the only pushback or challenge I have for you, Mistaken, is the older music was that that type of music was mostly done by men. It wasn't done by women. When you listen to the older, like the older music is when we go 60s and 70s, um, the women didn't necessarily sing about their body parts or being bust down. It would be a little bit of a softer sound. Now you had men like let's say Clarence Carter, who would, I stroke it to the east and I stroke it to the west, and I think that makes a big difference on the outrage, also. So that's a little pushback that I had for you.
I think the access does. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
I was just gonna also say, like, Miss Higgins' point is really interesting because there's so many variables to this, and I think the access is a huge part because, I mean, I was born in '95, so I mean, all I know is all I know. But you'd hear music, on the radio, or I remember watching a bunch of music videos. And then of course there was iPods later on, but for a while there you had to buy everything or upload like your CDs. But now it's like you get access to everything from Spotify to YouTube or whatever. And it's all, which I think is great for artists, of course, but I also think too our culture, just in the West, has also become more acceptable of different things. There's more tolerance, just in general. I'm just speaking, from a bigger picture. So I don't know if that's part of it too, but I just wanted to add that to the discussion.
You just made me feel really old.
I don't want to. I didn't want to say anything, but I just want to let you know where I'm coming from.
I know she said she was born in 95. I'm like, oh shit.
I know a lot of classic rock. I do know a lot of classic stuff, but stop it. Sorry.
Dang, Kay, you were born in 90 what?
95.
You know what? Look. I think anybody who was born before 2000 at this point is kind of looked at as like.
I'm not like that.
So,
95, I was in high school. Jesus.
You know,
God damn.
Yeah, me too. I was too.